Barnaby Merrill spoke to Jonathan Chilvers, the Green candidate.
Okay, just get started. So you're a current councillor for Leamington area, just around here actually. What advantage do you think this gives you as a candidate for Warwick and Leamington MP?
I think probably three main advantages. Firstly, it means that I am completely immersed in the local community, so the big issues in the area, especially for students, like housing and public transport and that kind of thing, I'm absolutely already involved in working on those issues. Secondly, it's about the experience that I've had as a county councillor over the last 4 years, particularly in terms of standing up and being a really strong voice of opposition and holding the other parties, Conservative and Labour, to account in the council. And then thirdly, it's that experience of trying to bring people together to find practical solutions for the problems we face, which I think stands me in good stead being a parliamentary candidate.
Okay, so what do you think the Greens can offer the voters of Warwick and Leamington that the other parties maybe couldn't?
I think three things again, like rule of three. So firstly, we're very clear about wanting to build an economy, an environment that that we can be proud of handing on to our children, to the next generation. And I think the Green Party, the only party that are prepared to take a long-term approach on living within our economic and environmental means, so that we are able to hand things on to our children in a fit state. And that means making really practical, sensible changes to the way that we do things, both in terms of the way we run our economy and how that feeds into the resources we have and use of our planet.
So Leamington has a very high student population. What will you do to help students, particularly obviously as a Warwick graduate yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I speak to lots and lots of students that are part of the area where I represent as a county councillor, and the same kind of issues come up again. And the first and really big one for us is housing and housing standards. There's a lot of people there are a lot of good landlords and a lot of landlords that do the things they're meant to, but then there are some that are just, to be honest, horrific, and we need to hold people to higher standards to make sure that some of those basic things like boilers and wirings and rubbish and waste facilities are fixed. And in the last year, myself and a colleague have produced a 10-point plan about higher housing standards. And that also feeds into making sure that we have really good relationships between students and the wider community. And as a Warwick graduate, I'm sort of seeing both sides of the fence and in kind of the ideal place to bring communities together. And most of the time that is the case. And I've worked in a charity and I've had brilliant students volunteering. There are loads of students that do get involved in the Leamington community, and I think a lot of the time it's shouting about those good stories as well that helps kind of bring the whole community together.
Okay, you've spoken about kind of what you think the Green Party can offer the residents of this area. Looking more broadly, what would you say are the three most important issues that are being faced in this election?
Okay, so I've already talked about making sure we have an economy and environment we're living within our economic and environmental means. The second one obviously is around Brexit. And my standing up to Theresa May's irresponsible and extreme Brexit, which kind of is taking us towards an economic cliff edge. And we really, really, really need strong opposition and a strong voice on that. But to be honest, people within the Conservative Party or Labour are not giving. We live in a constituency which voted really strongly Remain, and students voted even more strongly Remain, and yet our current Conservative MP, Chris White, is just going along meekly and weakly with Theresa May's Brexit. And so what's the point of electing somebody that, even though he voted Remain himself, is just putting up his hands and voting to go along with a Brexit, not even challenging things like on rights for EU nationals, and the single market and our environmental and workers' rights. The third main thing is the housing crisis. We need a housing market that's within reach of ordinary people. Over 40% of 25 to 34-year-olds are now renting, and that rent is taking about 40% of people's incomes, and that's not much left aside to put down for a deposit to own a house. And that dream and aspiration of home ownership is still there in us, but we need to fix that.
Yes, we spoke about Brexit and what your kind of approach would be. So more broadly, as the MP of Warwick Leamington, you would represent the kind of Remain vote in this constituency, perhaps rather than looking more broadly at the national vote.
I still think that I'm there to represent every single person in the constituency, and one of the main reasons that I want to stand for Parliament is to heal some of those divisions and bring people together, because a bad Brexit is still a bad Brexit if you voted Leave or Remain. If we get our workers' rights put in a bonfire of regulations, as people within the Conservative Party want to do, then that's bad for people that voted Leave or Remain. If we don't have good water and air quality because the Conservatives have brushed all that away, that is bad whether we voted Leave or Remain. What I would do, though, is say we would have a ratification referendum on the final deal. People need a say on the final deal. People did not vote for the type of Brexit that Theresa May is and the Conservative Party are trying to give us. And so we would say at the end of the process, the referendum was the start of the process, the general election is a continuation of that conversation. We would say we have a ratification referendum on the final deal. And lots of some of the people within the Conservative government and sort of Brexiteers are saying, oh, you're being anti-democratic, you all need to pull together and just be quiet and shut up. But I say, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to stand up for what's best for this country, and I'm not prepared to be silenced just because people want a different and damaging Brexit.
Just out of interest, would that be the Lib Dem style referendum where the options would be Remain or the Brexit deal, or would it be more similar to the sort of deal or no deal that Theresa May's been pushing?
Well, as far as I know, Theresa May hasn't been pushing a referendum at all.
No, of course.
But we would definitely have an option to stay in. I think we need to see where we get to in terms of what other options are on the table, whether it's a no deal, the deal that's, if there is one that Theresa May has managed to negotiate, but there would definitely be an option to stay in as well.
With Labour unveiling a quite left-wing manifesto this week, do you think there's now more of a justification for a progressive alliance, sort of where the best placed non-Tory candidate receives support from all the others?
Within the Green Party, we've had lots of conversations. In fact, it was our leaders, Caroline Lucas and Jonathan Bartley, who were really kind of pushing the idea of trying to work cooperatively with other parties. And we did talk to both Liberal Democrats and corresponded with Labour on this. And we wanted a real cooperative joint approach, not just being told that we should stand aside and that we had nothing to say. Because I think what's really clear is that the Green Party do still really have really distinct things to say, and also that we draw our support from all the parties, including the Conservative Party. And so I just don't think it's as simple as people on the left would like to think. And so we were saying, yeah, we're happy to cooperate and work, but we need a genuinely new kind of politics, a joint approach. And unfortunately, the other parties weren't willing to think big enough, to have that big enough vision to do that.
So what is sort of the general aim of the Green Party, do you think? You won over 3% of the national vote just 2 years ago. Obviously, because of budget reasons, you've had to stand slightly fewer candidates this time, I understand. But do you think it's student areas like this that can sustain your success from 2 years ago? I think we're standing an extremely high number of candidates, especially in England. I think it's a record. I know in Wales and Scotland it's slightly different. So yeah, I think the main aims that the Green Party are looking to do is to really
build on 2 years ago and show that we are a strong voice, that we're prepared to hold the government to account, that we can show that from our local council experience that we are credible and competent, and that we can find these practical solutions and bring people together. And I think, as I say, I think that message is spreading wider. So I wouldn't say just in student votes, although I think lots of young people are really attracted by that green message of saying we're planning for the future and to be able to hand on an environment and an economy for future generations. But I think, I'm getting people that voted Conservative and Remain who are saying, actually, I'm really worried about what the future looks like. We need to make sure that we do this properly. We need to look after our environment, both locally and international. So I'm looking to build on our vote from all groups of society.
Okay, and finally, what would your kind of general pitch be to any type of voter, no matter what they voted before, as to why they should vote Green in Warwick and Leamington?
Well, I'd say people should vote Green in Warwick and Leamington if they want an economy and environment that's going to benefit future generations, as we've talked about, and that means living within our means. That means doing things differently. If you voted Remain and you want somebody to stand up for hard Brexit, Chris White, who's gone along weekly with Theresa May's Brexit, that we will stand up day in and day out and be a strong voice to make sure we get a Brexit that makes sense and works for everybody. And thirdly, the housing crisis in Warwick and Leamington, with house prices ballooning and more people coming to live in the area, the Green Party's got really good solutions to fit that, and will be prepared to challenge the narrow self-interest that means that it's not been fixed so far. So those three things, being a stronger voice for Warwick and Leamington.
Jonathan Chilvers, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.